Welcome to the Pacific Championship Series finals weekend here. We have the number 1 and the number 2 seed from the regular season in PSG and J Team about to face off in the lower winner bracket to see who gets that one ticket to go up into the grand finals. I'm going to be your play-by-play and host today, Clement Chu. With me is the ever so handsome Frank Nightstar. Sorry, I got that mixed up for a second right there. And before we dive deeper into the matchup itself, a big thank you as always to our sponsors in CTBC Bank and Caliber, and of course our organizers at Riot Games, Carry Live Co, and Garena. Without you, PCS is not really possible. So, Nightstar, let's go right into it. Did you expect these two teams, our top 2 seeded teams, to be duking it out right now, or one of them has to go home?
Well, I mean, if you looked at our playoff prediction bracket, yes, I did expect to see J Team here in the lower finals, and at the same time, when we evaluated how the form of CFO coming into that winners finals, it could be reasonable to really say that, you know, there's a pretty good chance that PSG could find themselves in the lower bracket final, and I am still, regardless, a little bit surprised, but CFO have just been hard streaking, so am I that surprised? Not quite, because of how strong CFO individually have just looked all across the board.
CFO are the ones that did take down PSG. They lost the first game, but then went on to rally for 3 straight, sending PSG to the lower bracket and on their last legs in this playoffs. Whoever drops this matchup does not get a second chance. They will just fall into the offseason. So whoever wins will have a spot tomorrow versus the CTBC Flying Oysters. And this is going to be very, very tough. We already have one new team heading onto the grand finals. Last year, it was all Beyond Gaming, all PSG, and now we have to find out if PSG can keep their streak alive.
Yeah, that'll be a pretty tough task here in a J Team that did look like they were improving as the series went on yesterday. And PSG, of course, in their upper bracket final, really looked a bit off. So they also had their struggles. J Team on the upswing, PSG perhaps not quite all there. I think a lot of it will be determined by this first game if PSG have figured out what they've learned in that CFO series, because a lot of what they could have learned in the CFO series, I think, would be really easily applied in this particular series against J Team, just because of how similarly CFO and J Team have drafted in these playoffs.
We're going to be taking a look at our blue side team first. It is going to be PSG TALON. For those of you that are new, you've seen a lot of these faces before. They were our World's representative, Hanabi in the top, Juhan and Bae, our newcomer Korean duo, and then we do have Unified and Kaiwing in the bottom side as always.
Yeah, and for this PSG Talon roster, they've shifted away from the tempo that we saw them play so much last year, and they've played much more conservative this split so far. So it's a lot of scaling, it's a lot more 5v5 focus rather than the 1-3-1, 1-4 style that we saw last year.
And they do still have a lot of strengths here. I think their bottom lane has been their most consistent lane. Hanabi, probably his best regular season I have seen him have in his entire career. Just completely unchallenged
Yes.
in the top side. For the other team, we're moving over to Taipei J Team. Driver in the top lane, Kongyue and Uniboy, your old mad duo, and then Lil V, plus with the new support in Enso coming in here. So, you know, this team, I think, a little bit more unexpected. They were the second seed, doing the best out of any of the J Team multiverse. But how do they actually play on the Rift?
Yeah, when it comes to Taipei J Team, it's all about the faces that we do recognize, at least for our international viewers, right? It's about Kongyun, it's about Uniboy, these two very experienced players that have played at the world stage, and it's about them dominating the mid jungle 2v2 and then being able to transition that pressure down into that bot side. These are two very bot-centric laning teams when it comes to just where they throw their mid jungle pressure towards.
We definitely have seen that before, and the interesting pattern that we have seen is Kongyun and Uniboy, it's very strong mid jungle. They're likely to do what CFO did to PSG and just focus on that matchup. We saw Bay being quite honestly exposed. There were 7 bans thrown at Mission, and Mission still gobbled up the matchup time and time again. So I guess the big question on everyone's mind is, how can PSG sort of stabilize the mid jungle and then just win through their sidelines?
Yeah, and the thing with this matchup, as we get to compare, it's about this bot lane with Unified Lil V. Lil V, I would say, has somewhat underperformed this playoffs. He looked a lot better during the regular split, but so far, just not quite stepping up to the plate here. Whereas on the flip side, for PSG, it feels like they have really pigeonholed themselves a little bit too much in the playoffs as well, just being too focused on getting Unified ahead, just because of the fact Bay hasn't been able to generate his own leads in the mid lane, being more of a supportive utility style mid laner, even on picks like the LeBlanc, going for the Everfrost, trying to go for a more CC heavy builds. And then up in the top side, we haven't seen as much focus onto Hanabi when it comes to the pick ban, so a lot of their eggs are in the Unified basket.
We'll see if he can carry through. The damage numbers definitely favoring him. And PSG actually banning Lee Sin themselves. This was a bit of a pivotal pick against CFO because it's such a good early game. And then we do have PSG, of course, chipping away at Uniboy's usual suspects. He's a Zoe master, an Orianna master, a Syndra Ahri master.
Yes.
So I do expect a lot of those tempo picks to go away. J-Team, on the other hand, going with the Rakan ban. So a lot of interesting developments here.
Yeah, I think the Rakan ban is also just 2-in-1, where they're trying to limit PSG taking the Xayah on the for first pick here. And for PSG, they actually don't ban away the Syndra. I think the Syndra was definitely a warranted ban against Mission. But as we saw in the DCG series, DCG also thought that the Syndra was a well-warranted ban against Uniboy. So interesting that PSG have a slightly different take. Of course, I would expect that these two teams in particular know a lot about each other, because CFO, really, they talked about, hey, we practice a lot against DCG. So I would expect that PSG J-Team were probably major scrim partners against each other going into finals weekend.
Yeah, I think that is definitely very warranted. You know, there's very few top teams here, so they all have to get accustomed to each other and find times where they can practice. J-Team gonna go for the Aphelios here. We have seen Aphelios priority over Jinx throughout much of the playoffs, and of course the Nautilus, our tier 0 support or tier S support in the PCS playoffs so far.
Yeah, and this first rotation makes a lot of sense for J-Team. They've put an enormous priority onto this Aphelios pick, and really the Nautilus pick is also a big priority for them, just because of the fact that Lil V has struggled mightily against dodging Nautilus hooks. So if it's on his team, then perhaps, you know, he won't get hit by them, unless if there's a Viego on the other side.
And I will have to add that I feel like Unified and Kaiwing actually fell prey to this Nautilus as well. Their series versus Koala, they got hooked a lot of times just out of nowhere. So we'll see if that continues to be the trend. So far, luck has been on the Maroon Sailor side. For PSG, they're going to go with the Volibear, another strong early game pick. And for J-Team, oh, is this a takeaway from potentially Bay?
I feel like Uniboy's just kind of memeing here. There's... While he could pick it up, it just really changes how J-Team would play just because Uniboy wouldn't be a main carry and they will pivot towards the Graves. I fully expect either the Rise or I guess really only the Rise. Perhaps the LeBlanc gets banned by J-Team if they want to pinch PSG's mid pull even further.
For sure, and I just want to harken back on your comments, but for J-Team, they need to win big in mid lane. So going for the Rise, usually with the tank build, probably not an option here. PSG, on the other hand, going to cut down on some of the options from the jungle, going for the Trundle ban, very interesting enough. And we have J-Team now banning away the Ornn. So, there's still a lot of strong blind picks for Hanabi, and I have to say Hanabi versus Driver is the matchup I worry about the most, because Hanabi had his way against Leaky, and Leaky destroyed Driver. So if you chain that logic up together, top lane could be a very big issue in this series.
Yeah, and I think the ban onto Trundle is really just saying they want to pick some sort of big tank up in that top side, and when you have Leona, you have Volibear, and then you're adding maybe a Scion or an Ornn up in the top side, a Trundle certainly would get a lot of value in this instance, but the Ornn does get banned away, so that won't be an option for them. And with this Renekton priority, well, it could still be the Graves up in the top side, and then we play Renekton into the mid lane. It opens up the possibility of locking in a big carry jungler like the Diana for Korea on last pick. Maybe even the Gwen. Of course, the range nerf and the damage nerf going to hurt jungle just ever so slight. But PSG, they'll go ahead, lock in the Gangplank. This is a pick that we saw dominate yesterday's series. So I love this pick because it also helps neuter some of the control mage capabilities that you would like to see from Uniboy on this last pick.
We're going to have the GP lock in. Bait, considering his options in the last pick here, we did have Azir show up for him. We did have Victor being played. Orianna is, I would say, more of a takeaway pick from Uniboy because he's so strong on the champion. But what does Uniboy answer here?
Yeah, the Orianna will get locked in, and as you said, I feel like more of a denial pick. So here we could go for a couple options. You have the ability to go for a mid pick. You have the ability to go for a jungle pick. You could even go for a top lane pick. So all options available, and it will be yet that control mage here for Uniboy. It will be that Victor locked in at the end. So it will be a jungle Graves, top lane Renekton. And overall, I feel like PSG have adapted their strategy, going instead of trying to play side lanes with a Rise, just all in on this 5v5 composition, at least for game one, where teams can be a little bit more conservative with their play, trying to feel each other out. I think it makes the most sense here.
I think it's a very standard composition. Strong picks throughout the entire side. They can play safe in the mid jungle. There's, I don't think it's the most cohesive of compositions necessarily, but it's certainly strong across the board. On the other side for J-Team, I was so hyped up at your suggestions. I was ready for the Gravitum and the Diana to come in. You just kind of moonlight and destroy everyone, but it didn't happen. They went with something that's actually fairly standard for them. So how would you judge these two compositions? Can you list out sort of the win cons for both of them?
I mean, both of these comps do want to scale a little bit, right? You have control mages coming in from both sides, but for the most part, PSG, they're going to be very comfortable scaling up. Whereas on the flip side for J-Team, you need to be able to find a couple picks here or there, because you do have the Renekton, you do have the Nautilus, who need or really want to get snowballed a lot earlier than on the flip side. And especially with the Graves, we talk about jungle Graves being not able to get as much gold. Korea definitely more of a carry player, but at the same time, we haven't seen this style of Korea in a while, where he's going to have to be a major damage threat.
It's definitely true, you know. I think he did a very good job on the Viego yesterday, but the Graves certainly a less common pick for him. We're going to be taking a look at the runes across the board here. Everything looking pretty standard. We do have Fleet Footwork coming out from Little V just to make sure he can survive that Xayah lane. And you know, listening to you talk about the compositions, it does sound like to me that you're basically saying Kongra needs to get ahead and he needs to stay ahead because
Hmm.
you typically don't see Graves dominating if they're just even against a comp like PSG.
Yeah, I think the Graves pick really just came out as a punish pick against the Volibear. Of course, Graves will be able to heavily outfarm the Volibear, but at the same time, Volibear has uh, a lot of ganking potential, especially with how consistent his lanes are across the board, right? He can gank
Ooh.
top lane. If he gets one kill onto this Renekton, like the GP just hard wins this matchup. And Enzo whiffing on the hook, and at least he doesn't get a hard punish. But when you look at this bot lane as well, they have so much CC potential in combination to the CC coming out from the Volibear. So I think that's going to be an early target for Juhan, just try and attack that bot side, and which remains consistent with their identity throughout the split so far.
You definitely expect this bot side to just win out in the 2v2 here. You know, the Xayah can push the Felios in, and you also do have the more lane-centric rune coming in from Kaiwing here, so we'll see if that becomes a focus. But for now, Kongra is going to be the one jungler that does arrive on the scene first here, and we do have Juhan heading towards the top side. Meanwhile, in the mid, we did see some very good trading from Uniboy, hitting that level
Mhm.
too early, pushing base HP bar down. So we'll see how the ganks work for each side here. PSG doing a very good job at making sure they keep tabs onto Kongra, making sure they can avoid the gank. And
Mhm.
meanwhile, on the top side, this is the matchup we were all very worried about. Hanabi has been the most dominant top laner this entire season. Yes, he was weak side in the past, but this split, he is the I have to say he's the alpha dog of the top lane here. Dodging away from the Q, very nicely done. And we do have the gank incoming. Let's see if Driver walks forward into this one. He's level 3. He might be looking for the trade. He walks up to Hanabi, and Juhan shows his face. They will not overchase, but they get the flash.
An early flash burn definitely could set up for a dive attempt right here. They have the HP advantage, double buffs onto Juhan, so packing more than enough damage. But I think they're just going to be very comfortable in just crashing that wave here. And yeah, it doesn't look like Juhan is that interested in making a dive happen. They still have an opportunity with the second wave coming in, but I think it should just be Krugs coming in, unless if we get one more good trade coming in from Hanabi. But yeah, as it stands, not enough of a wave to actually reinforce this, but it's still such a massive win. Getting a good back timing for Hanabi, especially on this GP, it's a lot about getting a good first buy. And now, like, if you're Renekton, a lot of your fight potential comes from your first item or just fighting without items. So he's going to be set a little bit behind here.
Yeah, dropping a lot of HP, and also he does have to consider the threat of just getting outright killed by Hanabi through some of these harasses here. So
Yep, now
definitely a
we've
strong
got the
win.
Sheen poke too.
Oof. That's going to be pretty rough. Let's see. Little V does get caught out here. Has to burn his flash instantly. Big win for PSG. And this is even before the serrated dirt comes in. PSG are going to full push this one. And oh, things are getting a little bit hairy into this lane. We do have Juhan on the bottom side of the map. And Kongra taking a direct route. He's going to run right into Bay. Let's see if he gets any damage off here. Just clearing out the ward. He will get it before Bay. And Bay does not go back just yet to clear it out. There we go.
Yeah, there we go. But I would say not a great start coming in for Lil V at the start of this game. Already having the burn flash.
Trap is
showing that he
there.
struggles.
Kaiwing walks forward. The grabbed him already used. He has to burn his cleanse. Ignite goes down, but Enzo does a good job on sticking towards Unified. So the kill will not be gotten here. Heal used by Unified, and No, surprisingly enough, J-Team actually walk out of that a lot better than I assumed it would go.
Yeah, but now Lil V is actually tempted to stay, knowing that he has this jungler here. And I would have guessed that because Juhan is looking to recall, that they'll just crash the wave and go ahead and back off. But as things stand, not a lot happening, but we can see up in that top side, it's not a matchup anymore. It's not a matchup anymore, Clement. This is just a outright just giga gap.
And I will say that yesterday when Driver played the Renekton, he was one item Gourd Drinker into directly going for tank items. So he's very comfortable in playing this sort of, well, I'm just equalizing out the top side. If I don't lose my lane too hard, I consider it a win. That's the mentality I'm getting from Driver, to be honest. It's a little bit unfortunate to kind of play on such a back foot this late into the postseason, but it definitely has worked out for them. They're still here over DCG, despite Leaky basically winning every single matchup. So we'll see if it works out for them again. This time around, though, Juhan is going to come in. Renekton is pretty difficult to gank with that Dominus up, but he's in a very bad spot. Hanabi going to chase him down. Let's see if the kill goes over. Nope, Juhan going to take that one for himself, and that's first blood to PSG.
Yeah, regardless of who gets that kill at the end, this is a Renekton without teleports. So he's going to have to walk the long way back to his tower to get back that farm. And that means it's a 20 CS lead for a Gangplank that's going to keep scaling up. Juhan's level 6 now. So if he face checks...
Ooh.
Oh my god, he gets the steal. That denies Konya level 6 as well. So... level 6 hit by the Volibear. A lot of extra power on the side of PSG at the moment.
Yeah, we are going to take a look at the bot lane where a little bit of scuffle happening. But I think you called it right there. Top side firmly in the hands of PSG at this point. The Gangplank has so many ways to play this game. You know, he's just taking a very early back to walk back into lane to continue to punish the wave here. And we do see Driver, you know, he has to keep eyes over that Herald. Sure, you can lose your lane, but if you give out Herald, that's when the snowball really starts to begin here. In the bottom side, we do have the traditional strong spot for Unified. He does have his serrated Dirk and very close to level 6. And so far, hasn't been that lucky with his dredge lines. And we'll find out how that level 6 trade goes. But looks like PSG are trying to collapse even further onto this jungle with the lead that they have from Juhan. Let's see if they go in, and if we get some scuffles, J-Team able to take away all of their own camps at the very least.
Yeah, and it will be Juhan actually starting out this dragon, knowing that he has bot lane priority. Currently, Orianna is shoved in, or shoving the wave in, so it's really just great wave states all around in the mid-bot areas, and that's allowed Juhan secure this first dragon. So really nicely done coming in from PSG. They went onto Twitter, saw what you had to say about the CFO matchup, and said, all right, let's play around this Hanabi Juhan combination. And so far, it's paid big dividends here in this first game.
And if we take a look at the top lane here, Hanabi actually has a chance to just straight up freeze the wave. Driver taken to below 400 HP. He does have the Dominus, but that's not the position you want to be in against one of Hanabi's best champions in the GP. Kongyue will get spotted here, but it's just kind of passing through. Let's see if J-Team fully commit. They do actually bring the bot lane to the fun. So PSG a little bit late on the rotation regarding their top laner and their AD carry, but they could definitely still try to force their way in. We do have the teleport from Bay. Cast Storm used already. J-Team are hard committed to just taking this one before PSG has a say. Driver going in, a massive use of the Moonlight Vigil. Cannon Barrage might kill Driver, but he's able to flash away, and the Herald gets taken for Kongyue. And so it looks like he's probably going to need to flash that one. Indeed, he does. At the end of the day, lots of summoners burn. A J-Team come out with the objective.
J-Team come out with the objective, but honestly, I think PSG are pretty content with the result of it. If you look at the Summoner's burn, they burned the flash onto Driver, and they burned the flash onto Nautilus, and they didn't. They only burned their Leona flash. So coming out on the flash department, +1, and then it's really about trying to figure out how you utilize this Rift Herald, right? Do you try and throw more gold into this Philios? Lil V hasn't exactly performed well, so not sure if getting more gold into him is going to pay off. But then you look at your other lanes. You've got a Victor, okay, well, he isn't going to use this gold immediately, even if you get the extra gold investment. And this Renekton, I mean, there's no way to dig this Renekton out of the hole. He's down at the bottom of the sea. So even if you toss in 160 gold, there's no return on this man.
And I have to point out, J-Team seems like they made a wrong rotation here, as Driver has to walk all the way back into top lane. We do have a scuffle here. I don't think it's going to amount to much. Juhan does take the worst side of the trade as we're about to head into the second Drake. But I just wanted to point out that after that lane allocation, Driver actually down 40 CS. Unified, though, does get caught out by another champion that's in the bottom of the sea. And Enzo proves that, hey, you might be down, but you're not out.
Oh man, Unified just makes a massive blunder. Just walking over into that, towards that bush, and ended up forfeiting his life. Big mistake, big pathing error, and now J-Team, they will throw down the Rift Herald, being able to get some plates onto this Philios and onto Kongre, of course, as Kongre is going to be a big focal point of this J-Team composition. They need him to get a lot of gold because, again, as we mentioned, when it comes to Grave, he's a pretty resource-heavy champion, and that's why we've seen him more so up in the top side rather than the jungle.
You know, if you're on a lethality build, you got to get things done early. Uniboy going to get a free roam into the top lane, but gets spotted out in the meantime as well. It's a little bit unusual to see his build, and I do want to talk about this, but he does have the Leandri's Anguish done before the Luden's Tempest right here. So, you know, what do you make of this item choice against PSG?
I think it's really geared towards playing front to back, right? Because you do have to deal with the Volibear, you have to deal with the Leona, and the extra cooldown will allow you to also kite things out, getting the extra Q cooldown. And now PSG setting up to zone Driver off, not necessarily set up for the dive, but just continue to zone him off of these minions. Look at the lead. It's a completed Triforce for this GP, and he is, let's see here, almost 2,000 gold ahead, Clement. This is,
I'm getting deja vu.
this is like the distance between the sun and the earth. That's the gap right now. It's a lot.
Leaky was like the moon, and then you go further away and Hanabi is just smiling down from the molten core of the sun.
It's bad. It is bad. This Renekton is, I mean, might as well just build the Even Shroud at this point, because you've got two supports for the side of JT.
Yeah, we have to say this has been happening to Driver pretty commonly in the top side, and how do you think this kind of impacts the game, though? Like, can JT even send anyone at GP? Oh, but Enzo's going to try this one again, but this time PSG are sending a lot more help. Little V is going to burn his cleanse. Ooh, Juhan about to die, but Driver comes out from the back, isn't able to find the stun, and he just falls before he can do anything. He's so behind the curve. Now Bay looking for a little bit more up onto the ramp. Unify going to get his say as well. PSG now with the dominating lead over onto the Ocean Drake. Let's see if they decide to start this one. They will go for the objective with a full HP Hanabi.
Yeah, and Juhan also has the smite advantage, right? So they might not know it, but it was just going to be really hard for J-Team to get into the Dragon area from red side, and also they have to steal it away because they were missing the flash. But We get to see the replay, and J Team, they have to burn a lot of resources just to get out of it. And by the time Driver arrives, everyone is already gone, so there's no way for him to get anything done in that fight. And as you can see, like, he doesn't have real items. He's got a whip, but the only thing he's whipping is himself.
Well, he will make a nice pair of Crocs. I'm not sure Driver wanted to go in onto that one. Enzo was definitely hightailing it out of that fight. He was just like, my job is done here, and he just exited from the right side.
It's a 2-level lead, top side.
Oh boy, the bleed out here is so real for J Team. Like, how did they salvage this situation? Like, I assume they have to kill Hanabi at this point.
Yeah, but the issue is it's going to take a lot of people to kill him right now. And now PSG, of course, with this big topside advantage, will be able to turn around and look for this second Herald. I think, ironically enough, I think the second Herald's going to be able to have more value than the first Herald. Usually we don't talk about it as having more value, but with the current state of the map, you've got a 2,000 gold lead for the side of PSG. You can heavily snowball this map state with the second Herald, whereas for the side of J Team, it's about, well, maybe we can salvage some of this gold gap with this first Herald, but they also had to expend a lot of resources just to get that. So now it will be mid priority. Being able to crack open this mid tower is really important against the Victor, who has so much wave clear. And at the very least, J Team will be able to get solo plate gold, or not solo plate gold, but solo turret gold into the Aphelios. But Aphelios, it's so hard to play the game as the Aphelios against GP Alt, Oriana Ball, Zaya Feathers. Like, how does he find value? And I'm really struggling to see the priority set by a lot of our teams on this Aphelios pick as of late.
Yeah, I have to hard agree with you. This Aphelios is going into Bloodthirster's second item, so he's not even going to pack that much damage in the upcoming fights. He's much more about survivability. I just don't see him having an impact until much later into the game with this one. So I guess for J Team, their only real hope is gonna be Uniboy. He's the only one that's, still doing fine in his own lane. Let's see if he can make anything happen.
Yep, and I mean, we're kind of going back into the original storylines for these teams that we set up, right? For the side of PSG, it's about the 5v5, slowing things down in the mid game just to make sure you get the best 5v5 power as possible. But and for J Team, it's about this mid jungle a little bit too much so in this first game. But you have a 200 CS Victor, it's always possible that you can find that fight. Uniboy is pretty much exclusively the win condition at this moment, and maybe Konger are able to do some chip damage with this lethality build to get them low enough for this Victor to clean up.
Hanabi is 3,200 gold over his opponent. We're not even at 20 minutes into the game. Things are about to get a lot worse here. And PSG are sending the full squad against Driver. They get the slow down, the stun flash in from Kai Wing. They want Driver for a purse right here. And then Navi even picks up the kill. What is the answer going to be from J Team? They're heading towards the second tier 2 tower.
It's a bit of a base race.
Yeah, J Team could potentially come up with more here as they're working their way on both towers at the same time. But the mid lane runs out, and it looks like PSG will take 2 for 1 in this one.
Going to get that inhib tower up in the top side. Maybe they get this inhib as well. It is only 19.5 minutes, so having super spawn up in that top side might not be the best option, but overall I think they do come out a little bit ahead on the trade. Yes, the trade is somewhat even. It is just going to be a +1 kill for PSG, but when you look at where the lanes are set up, you have the super long lane up in the top side, which sets PSG up for Baron taking, whereas on the flip side, J Team, yes, they get a little bit better setup for Dragon, but PSG already have 2 dragons to their name. J Team aren't threatening the Dragon Soul, so overall, PSG, much better map state for them.
PSG actually traded 3 towers for 1 in that entire instance here. Juhan is standing on the ward. We are getting the fight starting here. Kaiwing takes a bunch of damage, so some small upside here for J-Team. They do make it underneath the ramp, and they also get the scuttle. So not all is lost here for J-Team. They're going to start the Drake here, pull it back. Bay is still a ways away from this one. Let's see how J-Team want to play this one out. Kaiwing gets spotted here. Uniboy does find him out, so the flank is at least diffused, but PSG are starting to walk forward. Super tense moment. If J-Team fall down here, this just might be the game. It's very hard to come back from this spot.
Chain.
Let's see if Hanabi can find it. Oh, Juhan still manages to get the Drake regardless. They throw a lot of damage on Uniboy, and PSG playing so cleanly. They don't overchase here. They just turn back with the objective taken.
Yeah, and the reason why is because they don't have the GP ultimate, so they would have loved to turn for the fight, but missing that other big zone control tool, they decide to just grab the dragon, which is, I mean, the key point of what they wanted, and then they go ahead and leave. So J-Team, with all the investment into getting that extra priority because they crashed they were able to destroy the 2 additional towers in that bot side, doesn't end up resulting in anything. They still end up losing out on that dragon, and PSG now they just have an overwhelming advantage because now with Baron on the table, the side of J-Team, they have to deal with the fact that they don't have 2 towers up in that, or 3 towers up in the top side. Hanabi, he'll get extra damage down on this bot tower. He should be able to break that tower. And look, he has the Triforce completed, the Collector completed, and now he's looking, what I would imagine, for that Mortal Reminder. So much extra item power currently on Hanabi that it's long ways for J-Team to get back in here.
Yeah, I will say, though, the entire gold lead is just concentrated on Hanabi alone. If you looked at the gold graph, Uniboy and Little V are still ahead in their respective positions. So, to simplify it, all J-Team need to do is kill Hanabi first. A little bit easier said than done, as it's Kongya being caught out right here. Cannon Barrage does go down. A little bit of a waste here, and Kongya even walks forward to taunt. Chaos Storm also burned here by Uniboy, but the control over Baron firmly still in the hands of PSG.
Yeah, they do have to expend a big ticket ultimate to in that scuffle, though, with the Cannon Barrage being used. And given that Uniboy has gone for the Leandries, he is going to have his ultimate a lot faster over that Cannon Barrage. So overall, a good result for the side of J-Team. And for PSG, it might be just a bit of a stall out until we get to that next dragon. And when, of course, that will be Soul on the table. The extra slow resistance and the extra move speed is going to help them in just trying to push through things like the graph field coming in from the Victor. Also helps them get past the slow coming in from the Nautilus. But overall, because of how much engaged they have, I think it's a great Soul for them in this instance.
Yeah, PSG still looking forward to that one. It would make Juhan's engage a lot easier. Same thing for Kaiwing down there. So I fully expect them to not want to give this one up and, you know, just take both objectives on the map with the Baron being there at the same time. We've got a couple glimpses of the Hanabi watch so far. Just a small update. He's 3 completed items versus 1. So I think the fight just all revolves around him. If J-Team don't kill him right off the bat with some sort of burst, I think he's just going to roll in and just execute them all with the parlay. He is a very good master of negotiations for a pirate right there. And J-Team have to take that handshake first. So we'll see how they play this one out. But so far, slow moving for PSG. J-Team, as you said, I feel like they have to give up the Cloud Drake. I feel like, okay, they're probably at peace with that idea by this point. So my question for you would be, you know, what's kind of the end game for J-Team? How long do they need to stall out to before they can really contest?
Before we get to that, Hanabi has a 5k gold lead on Driver. I don't know if Driver's going to be able to finish his second item before this game
build
ends.
from Driver?
He's got a mosh pit of items. He has a Warden's Mail, but there's no crit coming in besides from the GP. So if you spec into Randuin's, it's not the best value. Of course, you get raw stats, and the raw stats are okay. But when it comes to win conditions for J-Team, again, you have pretty much double support with 3 carries. It's really, really hard to find frontline because you don't have a real frontline champion, and PSG have just corralled them.
Oh, Uniboy gonna get tagged by the slow, has to
Uniboy's
drop
dead.
into stasis instantly. Kylie's still incredibly healthy. Uniboy pops a Feather Storm. Now Uniboy is down, and they get a 2-man find onto both the Nautilus and Kongyue here. Driver trying really hard to keep the choke in their hands, but at the end, they lose 2 members. They get nothing back, and PSG are coming to collect their Cloud Soul.
Yeah, Hanabi, though, perhaps out of position, and they need to all in for this pick.
Oh, Hanabi gonna flash away. He has a
Teleport
spin.
coming in. That's me. Oh my
He turns back for more. That's the power of a 5,000 gold lead, and PSG are not only gonna get the soul, they're gonna get the Baron right after.
Oh my Lord, Clement. That is... Ooh, that is some, a mature rated content right there. We're gonna have to up, the age restriction on our stream, but replay comes in. It's really just well played coming in from PSG. Once you get Uniboy and Lil V stuck in that particular choke point, one or both of these carries are just dead. Uniboy ends up flashing downwards, which is an interesting choice, but he wants to play around this Graves pick. That's really the only damage threat on his team that can help him in that fight. So he tries to play around it. Unfortunately, it's not the play. He ends up falling. That's, I would say, 80% of your viable damage gone. And then we get to see the replay on Hanabi just throwing a clinic. I mean, they need
it's
this
round
kill.
2.
They need this kill.
It's the Navi games. Let's go.
Surely.
Oh, it's actually 4 versus 1.
Surely
5 versus 1. There's no way he gets
but
out.
Now
right?
the rest of the squad, do they continue to take this fight? This might be a little bit hard for PSG, but they do have the positional advantage.
They're going in for more here. We see the 2-man shockwave.
Uniboy's dead.
Uniboy, the main damage dealer, already down. Renekton's going to follow. J-Team, they take down the raid boss, but the rest of the minions are still here. PSG are taking a lot of damage here, and Little V is still very healthy.
Unified.
He takes one down, he flashes forward, but Featherstorm is still there. The question now is, can PSG actually escape here? With the Cloud Soul, it looks like it will be an easy mission.
I mean, they should have just looked to push the wave up instead of trying to re-engage in that instance. So a little bit curious why they tried to push for more. But as it still stands, like J-Team, honestly, that's such a massive win for them. You know, I would assume coming into that, they were probably around 10k down. You get the 1k shutdown gold onto the GP. You get a second kill onto Juhan, but really the objective here, kill Hanabi. Doesn't matter what it costs, make sure you collect that gold bounty, and they were able to do that. Now we get to see his replay. I'm interested in seeing who gets the shutdown. It actually goes on to Ophelia, so their secondary win condition might be online, but you can see for PSG, as long as you kill the Uniboy, that's a lot of their range gone, because even Lil V, as fed as he is on this Aphelios, as strong as he is, unless if they run into him, it's very hard for them to for him to actually get value out of the Aphelios pick. But they did run into him at the end.
PSG decide that they're not going to go for the 4-1 anymore. They're going to brute force this one. They move in with Hanabi. During that replay, you could actually tell Hanabi wanted the team to continue to push because he was actually mad question marking the mid lane. So I feel like PSG are shifting to a less risky tactic right here. They definitely have the gold lead to just bludgeon J-Team to death.
Yes.
And J-Team have to give it up. They don't even try to clear the wave in melee. The Baron buff is about to expire here, so J-Team down 1 inhibitor at this juncture. I think they can feel all right with this one. but 2 inhibitors would be pushing it. So J-Team now walking up to defend. Driver taking a lot of damage. We see the Ori Ball zone out. Aphelios gets stunned down. They do get good damage on Kaiwing, and the fight is on. Ento gets a point-blank ultimate, but only onto the support here. He does manage to stay alive, but PSG are still so damn healthy here. They won't chance for more, though, because Little V is holding down the fort.
Yeah, now, I mean, Hanabi has an infinity edge with the 60% crits already, so these barrel chains are going to slap. Because you're sitting on now 90, I believe 95% crit chance, so pretty much every single time it's going to crit, except for the rare 5% chance, and Uniboy, he is on 3 items along with Lil V, so item-wise, they are sort of online, at least keeping pace with their counterparts. So this is probably the best opportunity for J-Team to find that fight. It's just a matter of being able to actually get in onto the fight, because again, their main engage tools is basically Enzo finding a hook with this Nautilus, or Driver somehow managing to flash in, get a double dash, and stun onto a key target. But otherwise, these two essentially support champions, they aren't going to last long in these fights.
Hey, don't say that about Driver. He can pop his Randuins and then slice and dice away. So he can buy time. That's about the best that I can come up with.
All right, let's see how much time he can buy.
I'm counting down the seconds right here. Hey, you know, he got...
He did it.
Yeah, he didn't even get an ultimate right there and burn a flash. So, I mean, yeah, I have to concur with you. It's really hard for J-Team. I have all my eyes on Little V. I think he has to be the win con. If they stall out until his Infinity Edge, then maybe you will find a massive Moonlight Vigil to end the game with collateral damage. That's the best case scenario I have in mind. But PSG are not going to give them that time. They know the Infinity Edge is about to come up. They're going to straight up walk into this Elder Dragon. I will say I have seen crazier things happen with this Elder, but Kongre is going to get instantly deleted. Goodbye, Kongre. Where did you go? The Leona ultimate didn't even land before Graves was just dead. And now Kaiwing does stall a little bit more. He does fall down, but Elder Dragon goes to PSG. And this is Hanabi chasing people down. Little V gets to outplay 2 barrels, keeps himself alive, but can he run forever? Bay is trying to close up on the backside, and Juan has to run away.
Just stalling.
But look, they're just going to end the game here. Hanabi going for the tower. 1 Nexus tower down. They stop the teleports anyway. Aphelios is dead, and Hanabi will win the game basically by himself. Welcome to 2022, where Hanabi not only plays weak side, but he also completely craps on the lane. Woo. Flash Wolf insignia shown already. Hanabi just making this look easy.
This game wasn't even close. I feel like J-Team haven't even entered the lobby. This is looking very similar to the CFO series, where J-Team just took the entire 3-game series on break.
You were scaring me there a little, because PSG did win the first game and then go on to lose the next 3, so...
That is true, but it wasn't in this dominating fashion, though, as PSG, they completely owned the map. There was just nothing that J-Team could do, whereas on the flip side, CFO, they still had, it felt like, moments of brilliance. So, this is a great start for PSG, and J-Team, you have to wonder, did we really learn from our previous series? Because in the series against DCG, we figured out that this GP pick has to be a priority in this draft, whether it's banned out in the second phase or you just have a strategy against it. They didn't have either, and once more, GP reigns supreme. He's 3-0 in the past 3 GP games.
Yeah, this was so crazy, and we do have to mention, like, the bright sides for J-Team. In this game, all of the gold lead was concentrated on the GP alone. The rest of the map actually was not winning against their counterparts. So, you know, the question is very laser focused, but it's also very difficult to solve because Hanabi just has that mechanical edge. And taking a look at this draft, I was actually very surprised that they banned the Ornn instead of the GP on this rotation. What do you think about that idea, and do you think it's going to change?
I think I think both picks really just hard slap the J team composition. If you look at the first 3 picks, right, you have Aphelios and Graves, very short range AD carries. So either the Ornn or the GP would have ruined them regardless. The Ornn ultimate just creating that big zone tool, and also the GP ultimate creating a big zone tool. So regardless, it was a bit of a catch-22 here. I think the big one was, of course, the Gnar ban. If they banned Ornn and the GP, that might have given them a lease on life or a little bit more playability. But clearly, they also fear Hanabi just on this Gnar champion. So really, all around, it was hard to figure out what J-Team could do in that second phase besides not pick Renekton.
Is it possible for J-Team to, let's say, because you're talking about the big 3 from Hanabi, basically. Any of these big 3 is going to slaughter J-Team. I actually agree with you. Is it possible that they kind of like ban 2 and then sneak away another? They could have actually taken the GP themselves. Would that have been potentially better?
If you go ahead deny away the GP, I think it made a lot of sense, but clearly their plan was we want to double flex the Graves and the Renekton. So I think they tunneled in on that a little bit too much, and that actually pigeonholed them rather than open things up for their last pick.
Oh, that's such a good analysis right there, because you were talking about they still had a chance to go for another carry for Kongra in that Diana, and we actually have seen them run that composition, exact same composition, earlier in the split. They stuck with the more standard version, and they paid the price here. It's a complete shellacking from Hanabi by himself. So, for me, I think J-Team actually walk away from this game a little bit more confident than coming into it. Sure, they know Driver's probably no match for Hanabi, but if you look at the rest of the map, I actually think it was fine. The Unified, you know, not on his most keen game sense today, and Bay, once again, wasn't all that impactful, if I'm being completely honest. So, if I'm J-Team, maybe my calculus is, hey, I just hard gank Hanabi a couple times, and maybe I'm good.
Yeah, that'll be the adaptation they'll have to make in game number 2. See how they can slow down Hanabi. At the same time, I would also, I would have to agree with you. Like, Unified has still not looking great on this Xayah pick. He's doing a lot more proactive ultimates, trying to lay down the feathers before the fights really break out, and that allows that. I mean, if you don't have that large gold advantage, it would allow the side of J-Team to reset the fight, and all of a sudden you strip away a lot of the power coming in from the lethality Xayah with the big feather storm into the blade collar. So, I mean, it was clearly just going to be Hanabi getting this MVP, 37% damage and 71% KP coming in from a top laner is really nuts, but you can see the value of this GP pick. When you throw down that cannon barrage, this very low range composition besides the Victor just can't play the game anymore.
Just look at that gold difference at the end. He was 8,300 gold ahead of his opponents in this one. That's over 2 completed items. That's close to being 3 full completed items over Driver. I think this series is going to be about Hanabi. The rest of the map can equalize itself, but Hanabi cannot be stopped. We're going to see J-Team try mightily hard at this one. Just kind of a throwaway question, but what do you think the matchup is going to be in the top side for game 2? Like, what would you want to see?
Give me Sion, give me Ornn, give me Malphite. I don't know. Just put him either on these good blind pick top laners that still give you utility later on in the game, or If they stay on red side, give him a counter pick. We just haven't seen him get counter pick in such a long time. We know he has a pretty relatively deep champion pool. Give him the opportunity to use it.
Yep, Driver has played fighters throughout the majority of this split, and if not, at least not the tank Renekton, please. So we're going to head over to game 2. Don't go anywhere. PSG has already taken this started this series 1-0.